Welcome to the COP26 dialogues from the SDG studio at UN headquarters in New York. Over the next 2 weeks, we will bring you a series of conversations that look at the Sustainable Development Goals and how they link to key areas of climate action and solutions that are being advanced at the UN Climate Conference in Glasgow. Our first dialogue today focuses on Sustainable Development Goal 7, access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy for all. The energy sector is critical for climate action and is at the center of discussions at Glasgow today. We know that we need to urgently close the energy access gap and deliver a transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy that is truly inclusive and equitable. And we have an enormous task ahead of us. Latest estimates show that 759 million people continue to live without access to electricity, and 2.6 billion people remain unable to cook cleanly and safely. Meanwhile, emissions from energy account for about 75% of total greenhouse gas emissions. With me today are two experts who are leading global efforts to accelerate action on Sustainable Goal 7 in support of the 2030 Agenda and the Paris Agreement. Joining us live from Glasgow is Damilola Ogunbiyi, the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All. And here with me in the studio is Alain Wilfried Biya, the Chief of the International Renewable Energy Agency's office here in New York. Welcome, Damilola and Wilfried, and thank you so much for joining us today. But before we turn to our guests, let's take a look at a conversation in Glasgow today. Have a listen.
I am increasingly seeing promising signs of recognizing that we've crossed the tipping point towards irreversible transition towards a fossil fuel-free energy system in the world, but it's going too slowly. We have too many countries and industries and financial institutions in the world that are not fully on board on the pace of change. So we still have a lot to do. We're still on an uphill path. And remember that, it's not only about oil, coal, and natural gas. It's about putting robust criteria on nature-based solutions so we don't have rebound effects from renewable energy, from biofuel systems. We need to, recognize that energy efficiency and equitable sharing of the energy space in the world is equally important as phasing out fossil fuels. So it's a complex challenge. It's a big.
3, 2. Promising signs, but still a huge challenge ahead of us, as we have just heard from Johan Rockström, the director of the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research. And we will now hear from our experts in the studio how we can tackle this challenge. Damilola, you're joining us from Glasgow. From what you've seen at COP26 so far, what makes this particular moment and this year so critical for progress on Sustainable Development Goal 7, to provide affordable and clean energy for all?
Well, this year we barely have 8.5 years left. I think that's one of the most critical things. And we both know that it's also a climate crisis. We cannot achieve our net zero goals if we do not achieve universal access for all by 2030. So I think there's been an extra emphasis on how do we make sure, at least like you said, 759 million people have access to electricity and 2.6 billion people have access to clean cooking. If we continue as business as usual, by 2030, we would still have 600 million people without access to electricity and 2.3 billion people without access to clean cooking. Once you see those statistics, and after going through the pandemic, then we realize that even though the vaccine distribution is not equitable, there's still only 25 of primary healthcare centers in Africa that actually have electricity to even able to administer a vaccine. A lot of things are coming to a head, and people understand that energy access firmly has to be part of the energy transition story.
Thank you so much, Damilola, and also for pointing out how much really depends also on access to energy and access to clean and sustainable energy. Wilfried, I'm sure you're following the announcements at COP26 very closely as well. So what are your thoughts on some of the major announcements and why do they matter so much?
Thank you very much. First of all, it's very good to see that more and more countries are joining the net zero pledge. It's also encouraging that the private sector is stepping up. You know, with the global financial services firm agreeing to align their financial assets with the goals, we are pretty sure that we are going to achieve greater results in the future. But as you know, it's not enough to make announcement. The most important thing afterwards will be to make sure that good implementation follows. And reaching the net zero emissions by 2050 requires a lot, increased ambition, targeted policies, but also more actions for the emitting countries, especially those who are from the G20 group. We welcome the Glasgow Breakthrough Agenda announced at the COP26, and we believe that it's also one of the best instrument we can use in that way. At IRENA, we are clear. We don't shy away from the fact that we cannot achieve the climate goals without giving importance, the high priority to renewables. So there is no climate action that can be undertaken without renewable energy. And the good news is that prices of renewables are decreasing. So there is a window of opportunity that we can seize. By the way, we already have a big gap in terms of financing. Estimates now are that we need 33 trillion in order to bridge the gap. And IRENA has conducted many studies, and we know that for each dollar invested will yield benefits of between $2 and $5. So there is a lot we can do in that way. Also, we need to support emerging technologies. We all limit our investment in oil and gas. We also need to invest in a set of policies. And we know that if we work together in that area, we will be able to achieve our goals.
Right, thank you so much. Wilfried, you said announcements alone are not enough. So let me ask both of you, what will you do the day after COP26 to make sure that the ambitious announcements really become reality? And how can the recently launched Energy Compacts, a new initiative by UN Energy, help to encourage implementation? Damilola, please share your thoughts with us.
Well, you just took it. I was going to talk about Energy Compacts. We're launching an Energy Compacts network that makes sure that everything that's been said here is put into action. And we're going back, especially companies who have said more things here, back to the Energy Compacts and say, how are you going to make sure this happens on ground? How are you going to follow commitments from countries now saying, I want to get to net zero, I want to get to clean energy, and private sector companies and multi-stakeholders saying that I actually have energy access targets. So we need to use the power of the UN and our matchmaking skills to bring people together. So when we are talking next year, we're talking about actual projects that have happened on ground instead of talking about just policies and commitments and agreements. But I do share the point in terms of policy formulation as well. There's still some lacking in that. But again, I don't think that is enough to stop projects from going on as they are. There are enough countries now that have the right policies and the regulations that want to encourage renewables. And we have to make sure that we show projects that it can work and we can focus on people and planet at the same time.
Thanks so much, Damilola. And Wilfried, what will your roadmap for action look like coming out of Glasgow?
Yes, Glasgow is already a good opportunity for many actors to showcase what they are doing, and we believe that some best practices can help us in order to achieve our goals in the field. Because at the end of the day, we need to have more actions in the field. We need to have more results in the field. It's not a matter of just talk in Glasgow, but people we represent, or people delegates in Glasgow represent, needs to make sure that at the end of the day, there is something that is being made in the field in order for people on the ground to feel the benefits of the decisions or the negotiations that are taking place right now. IRENA has more than 10 compacts coming out of the high-level dialogue on energy. And we are in the process of accelerating the implementation. Just yesterday, IRENA announced the launch of a new Energy Transition Accelerator Financing Platform, ETAF, in collaboration with the United Arab Emirates. Our goal is to mobilize at least 1 billion in total funding. And under ETAF, the UAE committed to provide 400 million in funding toward the platform. So with this 400 million, IRENA has the ambition to mobilize more, up to, and who knows, more than 1 billion. We also keep helping and supporting countries in the implementation of the ambitious NDCs to meet the Paris Agreement targets. We also want to mention that in our implementation, or in the implementation of not only the compacts, but the implementation of our strategic goals, we have a number of MOUs with many entities, being at the global level, like the UN, or being at the local level. We work in Africa with regional communities, for instance. We work with the African Development Bank. We work with many actors to make sure that energy transition is a reality in the field. So we pledge to keep the momentum.
Thank you so much. A lot of work ahead of you ahead of us for both of you. Decent and healthy jobs, Sustainable Development Goal 8, is another key area of work for both of you. Wilfried, your organization released a new report on this topic together with the International Labour Organization that is showcasing a positive trend. Renewable energy employment worldwide reached 12 million last year. Can you tell us more about the opportunities for job creation through the energy transition?
It's good that you mentioned the figure of 12 million. Let me say at the outset that renewable energy should not be seen as a threat to jobs. Actually, it's an opportunity to create more jobs. So renewable energy is not about threatening the stability of economies. Actually, it's made to boost economies. As you rightly mentioned, more than 12 million people are employed in the sector today. Let me give you other figures. You know, we have 12 million today, but it's a steady increase since 2012 at 7.3 million. And we know that IRENA, for instance, believes that by 2015, we are going to double the number of jobs. We are going to double to 122 million. So we believe that there are many opportunities. As I said earlier, we have the technology. Prices are going down. And IRENA firmly believes that under our Coalition for Action, more than 130 renewable energy leaders will be able to move countries and government in the right direction. Our IRENA Coalition for Energy comprises more than 100 leaders from government, from the private sector, and so on. And one of our key points is that we should make sure that in the field we have more jobs in the area of renewables, but also in the global economy in general. Because when you sell renewables to a political leader, he wants to see how this is going to affect positively its economy. It's not only about energy, it's not only about climate change, but it's about the economy of the country in general. So there is maybe a need also to change the narrative. So political leader can see in us creators of jobs or those who provide more opportunities for the economies. It's not only about climate change, as I said, is about the well-being of populations in the field.
Thanks so much. So huge potential there. And Damilola, allow me to dive a bit deeper here. For every US dollar invested in the transition towards renewable energy, an additional 93 cents of GDP growth is expected. How important is the just transition for the economy, and what is its potential impact on jobs, in particular on the employment and empowerment of women?
Well, it's critical. Economic growth in any country is sometimes measured with the amount of energy they have. So you're not going to get people out of poverty if you don't provide them energy. But, I follow on from what was being said. For every 1,000 households connected to decentralized energy, there's typically about 25 jobs. And in the case of gender, we've seen cases that if you provide a woman, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, with sustainable energy just for business and nothing else, she's likely to earn 59% more than what she was earning before. This is critical because it puts her on par with her male counterpart, but it also allows her to possibly employ another person. And those are the indirect jobs that we sometimes don't capture by having sustainable energy. It's not just about basic levels of energy, household lighting. It's about energy for development, industry, and real, true entrepreneurs need these jobs to actually survive. So there's a lot. The fastest way to get countries to the economic growth status that they really want to be in.
Thanks so much, Damilola. And before we come to the end of our sessions, I would like to ask both of you, what would you like to leave our listeners with today? Maybe Damilola, we go first again to you.
I think firstly, I'd like to explain to people the direct connection between energy, and especially energy access, and climate. If we do not achieve universal access by 2030, we cannot achieve net zero by 2050. The last point I'd like to speak to everyone about or leave them with is the amount of financing that is still needed for developing countries to transition. And it's important as a global audience that we find that money so we do not leave 1 billion people behind in this climate and energy transition.
Thank you. And Wilfried, what would you like to leave our listeners with?
I would like to agree with what Damilola just said. Actually, we need more resources. That's clear. And we may have ambitions, we may have good policies, we may have whatever we want, but if you don't have enough investment in renewables, we won't be able to achieve the net zero goal. And we should also keep in mind that energy, as I said, is not only about energy per se or about climate change, but we see energy as a cross-cutting issue because there is no way you can achieve goals on poverty eradication or gender or even employment in industrial development if you don't have reliable energy available to economies. So it's not only that we want to achieve goals, but we want to help country in order for them to achieve all the SDGs through energy. I just want to take one example. When we decided to partner with UNICEF, it was not obvious for some. Why are you going to partner? Why IRENA wants to partner with UNICEF? But when you look closely at what we are doing, you are going to see that it has a critical impact on girls in the field. It has a critical impact also on the education. So these are a number of aspects that we should look at when we talk about energy transition.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Wilfried. Thank you so much, Damilola, for such an informative and spirited session today. We have come to the end of our first COP26 dialogue on Energy Day. Stay tuned for more conversations over the next few days, and thank you so much for joining us.